Good morning. We are back with another 2022 Barkley Marathons update. Race time is now 47:17:35, and we've got some breaking news. I just woke up minutes ago to see what just happened. I wanted to share it with all of you who might just be waking up wondering what just happened. Let's go on over to Twitter here. Barkley is going on right now in Tennessee, and Keith Dunn, our favorite race coverage of the sport of ultras today at least, he tweeted this about an hour ago. Karel Sabbe found in himself in Petros after navigational errors. Greg Hamilton is the last runner remaining in the Barkley Marathons 2022. I just said on the last stream almost that he had it in the bag. Like he was going to get around, he was going to get out on Loop 5, and definitely not the case. It reminds me of what someone said, I think, to Andrew Thompson one year, is that when you left camp, you looked like you were in total control. And shortly thereafter, he completely fell apart, which is crazy. It's crazy. It says, after seeking help from a trash can that he thought was a person, as well as from some passing motorists, Karel was given a ride back to camp by Morgan County sheriffs. So that is the breaking news at this early hour. I wanted to come on and do a quick live. The other thing to note is we are just 40 minutes away from the 48-hour cutoff, which is what you need to reach to head out on Loop 5. So we might not see a Loop 4 finisher this year, and the best performance might end up being a fun run, which is crazy. After that just wild first loop of 30 people finishing Loop 1 to go to 5 fun runs is pretty crazy. So there is some more information about this, so we're going to head on over to Facebook. And this is just the crazy stuff that can happen at the Barkley. So here we go. Alex Hull had this. Oh, man. So a little bit earlier here, 8 people around the campfire, including Laz, waiting for Karel. The inner Barkley clock brings them all to the yellow gate. Maybe it was just an ordinary cell phone alarm, but inner Barkley clock sounds much better. And here it is. Breaking news. Karel was brought back by the sheriff. So he didn't even make his way back to camp himself. This is going to be one for the legendary books. I can't even talk this morning. It's so early right now. Okay, so it says he's okay. So that's the first thing. I know the title of this video says he's lost. He was brought back to camp. He was so lost that he ended up, people from the town of Petros apparently called the sheriff. So it says he's okay. He got lost and was completely off map. Sorry you guys can't completely see this maybe. People in the village called the sheriff, said they had seen a suspicious lady dressed like an Indian. At the end, it was Karel. Now only Greg Hamilton from New Zealand is out there, but it will be very hard for him to beat the cutoff. The Barkley eats them all. Very, very appropriate there. And here it says, this is the supposed press conference. Let me go full screen here with this. There we go. Press conference and experience sharing with Karel at the toilet to washroom in Big Cove only happens at Barkley. So there he is. Oh, that is so brutal for him. So he was on loop 4, a nighttime loop 4. This is the absolute crux of this race. I have been there before. This is the section not far from here is where I also got hopelessly disoriented and confused and lost for hours, to the point that I was, literally just going back and forth in the same small area until I was so tired that I just passed out. And man, so Petros is the area of the course that's right by the prison. And, the prison has lights. Petros has lights. So if he came off that descent in the wrong direction, he could definitely end up thinking he is descending towards the lights of the prison, but instead he's descending towards the lights of the town of Petros. And he could have ended up somewhere. He clearly ended up somewhere in the town of Petros that was not near the prison. So I can probably pull up a map here in a little bit. But good morning to you guys that are here joining this morning and that are up and at it. Let's see. Good morning. April, May, June. Was it true that he was handcuffed? I don't think so. I didn't hear about the handcuffing at this point in time. Was this an instance of hallucination getting close to the level of being a suburban garbage man? I can only hope that we will hear some of these stories, but I can imagine this could be on that level of epicness here. The prison book is book 4. Book 4. If he just came back, he left for his loop, and it was like 32 hours into the race. So he's been out there. He was out there 13 to 14 hours. He got 3 book pages. He was driven back to camp via the sheriff. That's the level of insanity that we're talking about right here. And as Trails Von Mutter says, Petros is a village near the race, and I'm going to pull that up right now. Okay. So we are going to Petros, Tennessee, for a little bit of information hunting. All right, so here's Petros, if you can see it. And if we zoom in a bit, you can see this part that protrudes up to the upper left part where the green is. You can see that historic Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary is right there. And let's go to satellite view. All right, so there it is. You can see up here, this is the prison itself. So that is what he was aiming for, is back in this. It's kind of back tucked into the mountains there. And the town of Petros is like just down here. It's not super far away. But, and like if you got into Petros, I mean, you could make your way back towards the prison, most certainly. But he did not do that. And granted, yeah, it's just wild. There's so much time elapsed. If we're talking about, I think the time from when he left. I want to confirm when he left camp. So he began loop 4 at 32:40, and I think he came back into camp like 46 something. He was dropped off by the sheriff just like an hour ago. So let's say it was 46 something. I mean, 13 to 14 hours. 13 to 14 hours to get 3 book pages and then end up so lost in this town that he is, people are calling him in, basically. So who's left? Greg Hamilton is the only runner that remains in the race now, and he only has 30 minutes to get to camp, get turned around with his crew, and get back out on course for Loop 5. And so he left camp, I think it was, oh man, at least an hour. What was his time coming in? So Greg Hamilton, 34:20, so 2 hours behind Karel. We'll see how he's doing out there. He's had to go through the whole night of a reverse loop Barkley navigation, which is not an easy task. Got a question here. How many pages per loop? And there's 14 this year. Greg has not yet finished loop as far as we know. Kind of keeping an eye out for any information from Keith Dunn and these guys. But if you're just joining us, the breaking news is that Karel Sabbe is out of the race. He collected 3 book pages from Loop 4 in over 13 hours and became so lost in the town of Petros, Tennessee, which is right near the prison. It's basically where the prison is located. So on the, kind of the far side of the course. I mean, really, it's not that far into the loop. It's maybe only a third of the way into the loop. This is a notoriously interesting area. 1 year, Jared Campbell, this is granted after Jared Campbell finished the race twice, I believe. At least one. Yeah, I think either once or twice. He became so hopelessly lost in the woods above the prison that he spent 7 hours in a single area going back and forth before he decided to drop. Crazy. What counts as a fun run? 3 loops. So 3 loops is a fun run, 5 loops is the full race. And you must finish those in under 40 hours. And for those of you who missed the news last night, we did have our first female fun run finisher since 2013, which is a huge deal. Jasmine Paris came in just 10 minutes before the race cutoff for the fun run. So she finished it in 39, 49, 56. And what I thought was cool was the previous woman to finish a fun run back in 2013, Beverly Anderson Abs, like within seconds was here on Twitter congratulating her, which is really cool. But that is the update for now. That is what we know. I'll share this photo again from Alex Hull. This is a picture of Laz and Karel with the sheriff dropping him off back into the park. So he was driven back from Petros. It's probably about a 20 to 25 minute drive to come back around. If you draw a straight line, what is the farthest distance from camp on the course? That is a good question. I can certainly work on figuring that out right now. Okay, let me see. Give me 1 second. Let me know if you guys have any other questions about what's happening right now with the race. We are less than 30 minutes away from the loop 4 cutoff, and we will find out shortly if Greg Hamilton will make that. At this point in time, he's going to have an extremely tight turnaround, which would mean that his amount of resupport is going to be very limited. What happens a lot of times is everyone in camp, all the other runners, become like a crazy pit crew, so they multiply their efforts. He would come in, maybe his main crew would attend to him personally. And I've heard stories of, what can we get you? Let's kind of get you turned around, like making you food, making you breakfast, whatever else. All right, so the question was, how far away from camp is the furthest point? I'm trying to do a little measurement here. As the crow flies, I would say it's around 5 miles distance from the furthest point, which would be, I think, like near like the New River crossing, would be around 5 miles as the crow flies. Been out of the loop. Is Hamilton the only one who could finish? Yes, he's the only person that's left on course, and he has 25 minutes to start loop 5 right now. But yeah, if you are just jumping on the stream, Karel Sabbe was lost. He has been found. He was found by the sheriff, and he was driven back to camp. So that is the breaking news for this hour. And apparently Laz is also so disoriented himself that he has refused bacon, according to Keith Dunn. So it could be ending very soon. Did I see John Kelly's post on Instagram? Said he lost his bag of pages and spent 3 hours in loop 3 looking for them, only found them as he started back to camp to drop. I did not see that. I am going to look that up, but that explains a lot, because I was expecting loop 3 to be fairly quick for some of these guys since it was a daytime loop. That is absolutely brutal if that is the case. For perspective of the 5 miles as the crow flies, recall that Lee Harvey Oswald made it only 8 miles as the crow flies from the prison in 5 hours. I don't think it was in 5 hours. I think it was in 60 hours. Yeah. Trying to pull up. Here we go. John Kelly. Okay, here is an update from John Kelly as we wait for Greg Hamilton here. And he says on his post, every time I think I've figured out all the possible ways to fail at Barkley, a new one pops up. This year I was carrying my book pages, the ones that prove I visited the course checkpoint, in a waist belt. During loop 3, I stopped to pee. Looking down, it was gone. The belt was gone. Oh my God. I spent 3 hours essentially doing hill repeats on a section known as Little Hell, scouring the hillside thinking it must have been ripped off by a tree. I fell on the steep muddy slope. I ended up being at the very top of the hill, right in the middle of a gravel road. I found it when I had given up and started back to camp. I turned around and finished loop 3, technically still with enough time to start loop 4. I kind of wish I had. No one has started loop 4 with so little time remaining and finished, but no one ever will until someone tries and does it. My legs felt much better than they ever have at that point. Nothing was hurting. I was mentally very alert. The frustration outweighs any of my other Barkley failures. One reason I pursue big challenges is that I feel I grow more even from a failure than I do from a success, but I really can't think of any lessons to learn or things to improve on here. And as much as I love the multifaceted challenge of Barkley, I feel like I didn't fail at any of the intended parts of it. When Karel, Sabbe, and I came in from Loop 2 in a bit over 19 hours with the worst of the weather behind us, I could already smell the finish. Probably my biggest mistake was stopping to warm up and snooze while the rest of the rain passed, instead of heading back out and continuing to work with Karel. But I'm not injured, and I got to enjoy 36 hours exploring otherwise inaccessible parts of mountains that I love. And now I'll set my sights forward and keep at it. Thank you so much to Magatron Runs for crewing and posting, and everyone for supporting another crazy adventure. Wow, that is crazy. Like, the little decisions that are made that end up costing us so much. You can see there, I noticed that I think at the start of the race he had not only his Ultimate Direction backpack but that little waist pack on. But it goes to show you, the decision. It's like, great, maybe carry some extra food reserves, but to put your pages in this clip belt that could come undone. Like your backpack, you're going to notice if that gets ripped off. But your waist belt, man, brutal. All right, if you're just tuning in, we just have one runner remaining. Greg Hamilton. Karel Sabbe did drop from the race. He was so hopelessly lost, he ended up in the town of Petros, which is located here. The prison is in the upper left-hand corner, and Petros is basically, the prison is in Petros, more or less. So he was wandering around town. We don't know the full story yet, but people from town apparently saw him being confused and called the sheriff, and then the sheriff came, picked him up, brought him back to the park. So it goes. I'm guessing the UD waist belt John Kelly was wearing won't make a return to the Barkley. I would imagine not. John's story is brutal. Wow. Yeah, that is the thing. There's so many epic stories about this race. It is crazy. So right now, if you're just joining, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, 47:40 is our race time. You must start Loop 5 under 48 hours in order to continue. And right now, we're waiting for one runner. We're waiting for Greg Hamilton, who is the final athlete out there. Question about Jasmine Paris. Did she do the fun run? Yes, she's the first woman to complete the fun run. She finished with about 10 minutes to spare last night. Right near midnight local time in Tennessee. So that is exciting news. And we had two runners that started Loop 4, Karel and Greg. Karel spent around 13 hours. He got the first 3 pages, the first 3 books, and then he became hopelessly lost, descending off of the 3rd book location. There are lights at the prison that you aim for oftentimes, and the town of Petros also has lights. So he could have been a little bit turned around, descending towards what he thought was the prison. It ended up being a neighborhood as part of this town. He ends up in this neighborhood and expecting it to be the prison, and probably was like, well, where am I? And couldn't get himself back on course. Be really curious to hear It's definitely possible that he had trouble finding one of the first 3 books, and that in addition to this, and that maybe he spent a lot of time, and that's why it added up to be 13 hours. I would imagine if he found those books quickly and he was in Petros, he would be able to get himself around to the prison. But at this point, we don't know quite yet. But some people definitely know, because there is another picture of him here in the bathroom, the heated bathroom in the park there. There is his friend and crew off to the left. He was in that documentary they put out a couple years ago. He's helped him on all of his adventures. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. Has someone ever finished with only 12 hours for the 5th loop and almost no in-between loop times? So John Kelly a few years ago came in with very little time to spare. I'll pull up this historical document. It's 2016. So John Kelly came in 47, 46, 58, and he was completely fried, mentally and physically. He quickly was repacked by his crew and fed, and he was sent right back out with like minutes to spare, and he immediately went about 50 yards up from the gate and stepped off of the dirt road and fell asleep right there, just on the ground. And they dubbed it Upper Kelly Camp. He slept, I think, for a couple hours, got up. I believe he went up and got the page from book 1 and then returned to camp. If it hadn't been for Kelly's wardrobe malfunction, do you think he would have finished? Do you think his decision to take a break in the worst weather, similar to Whiskey Man Cocodona early nap? Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. I think first off, his decision to sleep after loop 2 and wait out the rain. I mean, that definitely could have impacted the event. He still could have lost his waist belt somewhere else in the 60 hours, which is scary to think about. But yeah, because he could have stayed with Karel longer and worked together instead of stopping. But he was like extremely cold, I guess, and kind of out of it. But it sounds like he does regret that. You can go over to his Instagram and kind of read about that yourself. Oh, excuse me. So many variables outside our control. That's ultra. And that's the Barkley, really. His friend is Sloppy Joe, apparently. Loop 4 was not a reverse loop. I guess actually I'm assuming it was a reverse loop, but I guess I don't know for certain. Yeah, I think so. Oh, hi. All right, so we are just waiting here. Sit here? Okay. There you go. Got it? Okay. So yeah, we are, 14 minutes from the 48-hour cutoff. Definitely stay live through there to see if anyone makes it the rest of this way. Town is pronounced Petros or Petros. Sorry. Petros, Tennessee. So we still don't know if Greg is going to make it. We don't know at this point in time. We really don't have much information, and neither does camp. So they are just waiting as well. And they are tired, as you can see here in this tweet by Keith Dunn. To give you an idea of how disoriented Laz is at this point, he just turned down bacon. So you have a question here from Raphael. As a sports psychologist, I have questions. Given that you've ran this race and made it pretty good, what's the most difficult part of the course, mentally speaking? I mean, for me, I think the nighttime navigation, just in general, is the toughest part. Also, it's compounded by being tired later in the race and then kind of losing your mind because I've been on the trail itself, on track, on course, moving in the correct direction, and I've convinced myself mentally that I'm way off trail, way off course, to the point that I've turned around, gone back down to a definite known point, and then had to go back up, and then I've had to do it again, and that's happened to not just me before. Wouldn't book 4 then be his 10th book? Okay, I was talking about the 10th book then, like in the normal direction. Like, I'm assuming that it was a reverse loop 4. If he ended up in the town of Petros, like if you were in a normal clockwise loop, you would be descending from like down Ratjaw, which is extremely easy to navigate. It's extremely difficult to navigate coming off of Indian Knob. And Indian Knob would be book 3, the prison being book 4, in that direction of the course. So that's kind of what I'm saying. How are the runners keeping time this year? Have they been issued watches again? Yes, they were issued a watch by the race, and they were cheap $8 to $9 ones from Walmart again this year. But it seems like instead of all being identical, they are various sizes and shapes and everything. So if you're just joining in, just to update you, we are 10 minutes away from the 48-hour cutoff. Karel Sabbe was driven back to the course from the sheriff in Petros, which is the town next to the prison. And we are awaiting to see. We have one runner who is left in the event. He's on loop 3. He's been on loop 3 for like 13 hours, something like that. And he is running out of time. At this point, if he is not in camp, and we just haven't seen a tweet yet, he needs to get in camp, eat, get reset for loop 5, so he needs to resupply his bag. I'm sure his crew is at the gate at this moment, like maybe with a brand new pack with everything in it. He's not going to need much of a headlamp just for the last probably hour tonight. So this is going to have to be a record-setting turnaround for him to get back out on course if he does indeed make it in here in the next few minutes. So we are definitely going to stay live through the 48-hour cutoff, and if he doesn't make it, I will come back on when we hear that he does, because at this point, at that point the race will technically be over, and then it will just be making sure he gets back safe from the course. Am I thinking about going in 2023? I would love to return next year. Do other runners tend to stay at camp until the whole event is over? I would say not everyone, but quite a few runners will stay. I know myself, I always stay. I book my travel beyond the 60-hour limit anyways, like regardless. And I always just want to see, like if there's a chance to see a finisher, I want to be there. But yeah, what'll happen now is like people have flights for, like, let's say it did end here shortly. People have flights probably tomorrow or the next day. They might try and rebook them. Is it the same 14 books every loop? Yes. Peak age group average most likely to finish 35 to 40. I think I haven't looked this up completely, but I think it might trend younger than that. Like the range might be more like upper 20s to lower 30s. Like, yeah, upper 20s, lower 30s, I think overall. Someone could fact check me, I'm sure. Said that the race needs a finisher for morale. Do you think Laz might make it easier if nobody can finish in years to come? I'm not sure. I don't know what the course changes were this year to see, but there was a rumor before the race that there was going to be less climbing in this year's edition, like maybe 500 or 600 feet of less climbing. So if that did happen, then we saw really fast times on that first loop. So it's possible that this year's edition was indeed less climbing and potentially easier. Thoughts on the Barkley Fall Classic? Is it something the average ultra runner should try? I haven't run that one, but absolutely. That is kind of the Barkley for the masses, as they say. Are the books hard to find? Yes, definitely. Has someone seriously hurt himself on course? Not that I know of. Everyone, as far as I know, has been able to self-extract and get themselves out okay. If you're just tuning in, I want to keep giving updates. I know that there's more and more people waking up to the news that Karel Sabbe is out. He is out of the Barkley, the man that we thought was going to be sailing on his way to Loop 5 at this point in time. The first to hit Loop 5 since 2017, but that is not the case. He became lost, trying to find the prison book, and ended up in the town of Petros, Tennessee, which is right by the prison, and he was picked up by the local sheriff and driven back to camp. The Barkley lore continues to grow. And also we learned from John Kelly that he had his book pages in a waist belt, and that waist belt became unclipped and fell off. He spent 3 hours or more looking for that belt. He found it once he decided to quit and head back to camp. And then he turned around and finished the loop off with 20 or 30 minutes to spare, and then he dropped. And he says he regrets dropping. He says he wished he would have headed out on Loop 4. He thought he didn't have enough time to finish, but he didn't give himself a shot. Experience is a big chunk of possibility to finish. If you look at a race like Tour de Géant, the winners are quite old. My theory is that experience helps. Yeah, I mean, I'll be 38 next year. And I'm hoping to improve on my performance. Is there a Barkley reading list available, or would you rather never think about the course books again? I think at one point someone did make a list of all the Barkley books, but I don't know if that exists publicly anywhere. I certainly could probably make my own list over the years, but I've never tried to find the books, but that seems like it could be kind of fun to source and have all the books. All right, folks, this is getting tight. 4 minutes at this point. If he's not in camp, it's probably not going to happen. So let's hope that he's in camp and they're just too busy to tweet about it at this point. But I'm sure Keith will give us the definitive update here if he does not make it in time. What's the time of day there? So the race started at 7:54 a.m., so it's probably 7:50 in the morning. The sun is up, so it is light out. Dale Hawkins chiming in here. My wife ran the BFC. She loved it. We are going together this year. Should be fun. She's an average runner, but mentally tough and made DFL. Cool. What happened to Jasmine? So Jasmine finished the fun run in 39:49, so about 10 or 11 minutes to spare. The first women's fun run finisher since Beverly Anderson Abs back in 2013. I'm going to pull up these photos again from Facebook. For those of you just joining us, this is Karel Sabbe. He is in the bathroom at the park here sharing some of his stories. But minutes before that, he was dropped off by the local sheriff. This is Morgan County Sheriff. Oh, and I thought this was funny. Let me see if I could find it. The sheriff asked Laz for a selfie after dropping off the runner. which I thought was great. Oh man. So let's see here. I want to stay on Keith's Twitter here to see if we have anything. We're about 2 minutes away from knowing if this will be the end of the 2022 Barkley. Greg Hamilton, come on. How did Keith get involved in the race? I don't remember or know exactly. I know he's a runner. I forget if he participated at one point in time in the Barkley, but I mean, for the last 10 plus years, he's just been out there covering the event. Who wouldn't ask for a selfie with Laz? That's so true. Okay, 1 minute. 1 minute warning. Did the sheriff ask Laz, does this belong to you? Yeah, definitely. Can anyone just go to camp and watch the race? No. Spectators are not allowed. Only people associated with the event are permitted in camp. Keith participated at least once, if not a few times. So yeah, he has a sense of kind of what's going on out there. So the strategy for the prison checkpoint is go into the light, but not always. Yeah, I mean, the strategy is, I mean, you want to be on the right compass bearing and you want to be leaving from the right point at the top of the mountain. But the lights, I mean, there's a lot of lights, so you're kind of shooting for lights, but if you're even just a little bit off, the way the ridges kind of separate as they go down, it can be easy to take the wrong branch, and then by the time you get to the bottom, you are quite a bit off from where you think you are, and that's definitely something that could have happened to Karel out there. 20 seconds. There it is. 48 hours. And LRC Squash says it. We'll get the official confirmation from Keith Dunn. The Barkley wins again. Laz wins again. Oh. Let's wait for Keith's official posting here. But if you're just joining us, we just elapsed 48 hours. And at this point, the race may be over. Karel Sabbe was picked up, disoriented in Petros outside of the park boundaries, driven back just about 2 hours ago. A man who we thought had this thing figured out, and he was going to come back around with plenty of time to have a successful daylight loop 5, but that nighttime reverse loop 4 is oftentimes called the crux of the race by many of the 5-time finishers. They say that is oftentimes the toughest loop of all. Was this Karel's first time? No, he was here in 2019 and he got out onto loop 4 then as well. He made it a little bit further this year, but it will be interesting and fun to hear his report as well of what happened. Here it is, folks. Greg Hamilton has not completed loop 4 and is over the time limit to begin loop 5. The Barkley officially wins the 2022 race, and we now go another year without a 16th finisher of the race. Nobody wins. I bet Laz is as happy as us spectators when someone finishes, and those finishers are way happier. Yeah. I mean, he said that he does like seeing finishers for sure. It's a rare thing. Oh man. Can you give a quick intro to the uninitiated to who Keith is? The Robin to Laz's Batman. So Keith, he ran the race, I think they said in 2006, and he's just a super fan of the event, good friends with Laz and the rest of the organizers, and he makes his way out there every year to... He started just tweeting out a few things one year, and it's kind of caught fire, and it's become a thing. How did Courtney do? So she got very cold during that storm, could not find the book at the bottom of Leonard's butt slide, and her and Harvey Lewis together, they gave themselves at one point 30 minutes more to look for the book. They couldn't find it, and then they headed back to camp. So they dropped out. 1.5 loops is what she got in this year. So that's it. That's it for this year's Barkley, I guess. The rarity of a finish makes it special. Absolutely. Tuesday's night storm had such an impact. We talked about this. So, man, they had such a great start. We had 30 people finish loop 1, which is a record. It's more than any other time. And loop 2 was brutal. They had an all-night storm, and it seemed like people would go out, and like 30 minutes later, they would just come right back in. They would quit. That destroyed the field, essentially. So only 8 of the starters for Loop 2 finished, and only 3 finished under the 24-hour cutoff to have a chance at... Oh, that's not that year. I'm sorry. So, yeah. Okay, so we had 5 under the 24-hour cutoff, and then 5 fun run finishers. So all 5 that started Loop 3 finished Loop 3. We had 2 starters for Loop 4, and we're going to have no starters for Loop 5, and we will have 0 official Loop 4 finishers this year. Which has been pretty on par lately for this race. So how does this stack up? In the last 4 editions, we've had 0 people finish Loop 4. And it's a little above average in terms of numbers of fun run finishers. So I would imagine Greg will be back. He has now had 2 attempts, 2 fun runs in a row, and getting deep into Loop 4 is definitely getting him on the right track here. Greg is making a statement for professional row gaining. Incredible to get this far, absolutely. He's coming from the orienteering side of things. Obviously, he's doing quite well out there. The first loop was fast AF, but then the weather said, hold my beer. Absolutely. From time to time, I am asked whether I have a tip jar set up. I don't and never will. However, for those who may wish to contribute to the Barkley Fund and help with race expenses, you can PayPal funds directly to Barkley Marathons Fund at gmail.com. So there it is. If you guys do want to support the race, the runners, pay $1.60. Runners also do contribute to the Barkley Fund, but it's probably the one time in every few years that publicly there will be any ask for any sort of funding for the Barkley itself. But the event does cost money for the organizers, and we definitely want to see the Barkley live on. I think it's important for the sport. Jim Muir will be at Frozen Head in 2 weeks to do some BFC training. Awesome. Have fun out there. I love it this time of year. Do runners have to take a prescribed list of safety items? No, there's no required gear for this race. At some point, does someone go out to look for Greg? At some point, yes, but that won't be... If he doesn't show up, I would say in a few hours, then they would probably start to send people out to check book locations and see if he's torn that page out and made it that far around the loop. Has the last runner been cited on the course on Loop 4? Not that I know of. The only spot that would have been possible would be the fire tower. Jose asks where I do my long runs in Phoenix. I've been doing a lot of them in the Phoenix Mountains Preserve, which is right where I live. So I did a 38 mile training run last month across the whole mountain range and got like 14,000 feet of climbing, I think. Pretty solid. Oh man, I just got called out for yawning and then it made me yawn, so thank you for that. Well, I'm going to end this stream. We're 48 hours in. Greg Hamilton still has not come in. I might do one more live depending on what time he returns to kind of wrap up my thoughts on the race. But I do appreciate everyone who checked out these little insights. It was fun for me to do these, having to miss the race this year. And hopefully I will get another shot at it in the future. It's been a great time. We've seen a lot of drama unfold this year, and I'm sure that the stories are just beginning. There'll be a lot, I'm sure a lot of podcasts coming out in the next week or two with folks like John and Jasmine and Karel and beyond, with Courtney, I bet too. So it'll be great to hear from them, firsthand accounts of what happened out there, and we can all feed our Barkley addiction together. So thank you so much, and we will see you soon for more kind of running content going forward as we all are on our own journey. So have a good one, everyone. We'll see you soon.